All right, what's happening, everybody? It's your boy Keenan. Welcome to the Pro Football Exclusive College Football Blog. As I promised you guys, I was going to at least put out a blog today to give you a recap of Week 6 of the college football season. And we had an insane week. I told you guys that there was going to be a lot of upsets this week, but you didn't believe me. Now, too bad I didn't go through every game that I had as my games to watch this upcoming week, but there were a lot of key matches that I actually missed for you guys this week for all my key matches. I can't give you all the matches to talk about, but there were a lot of matches that were outstanding this week and some big time upsets. Now I'm going to start with the Pac-12 conference. There was an upset alert for USC at Utah. They ended up pulling off a 2-touchdown deficit and won the game 38-28. Now the question that I have for USC is, are they just a little bit overrated, or is the Pac-12 really that competitive this year? I think the talent in the Pac-12 is outstanding, and they have a great depth in teams. I think this is a very competitive conference, but I still think that USC is probably a little bit overrated. They were pretty much paper champions coming into this season, and including myself, I thought, just like everybody else thought, that they had a chance of winning the national championship this upcoming year, but they've been struggling a lot this year. They suffered their loss to Stanford, and they barely just escaped Utah at Utah this season, and I really think they're just a little bit overrated, but still a great talented team. Next Pac-12 game I need to talk about, a game that I did not mention. Arizona ended up playing against number 18 Stanford. Stanford actually rallied back to beat Arizona 54-48 in overtime. That was a great game. Good quarterback display by quarterback Matt Scott. Over 400, just under 500 total yards of offense. He had a great game, but Stanford ended up just rallying back, and it was just an outstanding game overall. Now there was a big stunner in the Pac-12 conference. California beat UCLA and crushed them 43-17. Yes, they had the home field advantage, and as I mentioned before, California was my sleeper for the Pac-12 championship this year, but I thought that USC would have had a chance of winning this one. I would have went with USC, to be honest with you guys, but I did not announce this matchup as one of my games of the week. And it pretty much UCLA pretty much was playing sloppy throughout the entire game, and that's the reason why they lost this matchup. Next Pac-12 game I need to talk about. Now this was an easy one for me. Oregon over Washington on 52-23. Oregon's the number 2 ranked team in the nation, and they well deserve it. They have the best offense in the nation, but one thing they need to get better at is more crisp is on the defensive side, and they are improving. They are contenders for this year's national championship. Now I'm going to head over to the Big 12 conference, starting with probably the top game between my Texas Longhorns hosting West Virginia Mountaineers. West Virginia did pull off that win, like I said, even though I am a Longhorn fan, 48-45. It was a great game, but I do like the play of Geno Smith, just under 300 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. But the X factor of this game was Andrew Bowie, the running back for the Mountaineers. He rushed for over 200 yards, 207 to be exact, and 2 touchdowns. He had a great game running all over my Longhorns, and this could be the X factor and build for this offense for West Virginia and bring more balance in the offense overall. But for West Virginia to win a national championship, they must have to improve on the defensive side. In order to win that national championship, they have to improve defensively. Now, offense is definitely selling the tickets and racking up a lot of points, but they just cannot depend on the offense. Their defense is going to have to step up in order to beat teams like Alabama or LSU or whoever they face if they make it to the national championship. But first and foremost, they have to worry about the rest of the remaining schedule of the Big 12 conference. Staying within the Big 12, there was a big upset alert, and in my upset game of the week, I proved that it was wrong. Oklahoma beat Texas Tech 41-20. That Oklahoma team got their revenge, beating Texas Tech at Lubbock since 2003. That was the first time they actually beat them since 2003. It was a big win for Bob Stoops and a big step forward, and they're really looking forward to this week's Red River Rivalry shootout against my Texas Longhorns, and I'll give you a preview later on this week with my prediction. Now, the upset of the Big 12 Conference was between TCU and Iowa State. Iowa State pulled the upset 37-23. Now, the reason why TCU lost this matchup is because they had to play without quarterback Casey Paha. That's my personal opinion. He was suspended in this game because a DWI. That was a big bonehead move. That was just dumb and selfish of him, and this team really needed him at quarterback, and because of that loss, TCU ended up losing that game. Now I'm going to head over to the ACC Conference. The real upset game of the week, the biggest upset game of the week, FSU, Florida State loses to NC State at NC State 17-16. That offense could not get everything together in the second half for Florida State, and they gave quarterback Mike Glennon too many opportunities, especially towards the end of the game, in which NC State scored two last quarter touchdowns, and that's why NC State won this matchup, because Florida State gave them too many opportunities, losing the ball on the offensive side and letting that defense create for Florida State to punt the football, putting it in the hands of Mike Glennon. And like I said, it was a great matchup overall, and it was actually ESPNU's game of the week. You should definitely stay tuned to that and watch it again. It was a great defensive showdown. The defense for Florida State showed up, but for the past couple of weeks, the offensive side has been struggling a little bit. Now, I do like Chris Thompson's play. He did rush for over 120 yards. He had a great game, but the rest of the offensive players, including quarterback EJ Manuel, has been struggling for the past couple of weeks, and that's why they lost to NC State, but that defense still did play good. Now, there was another ACC game that I mentioned, UNC playing against Virginia Tech. I went with UNC, and they did win, winning 48-37. That was a great matchup, and I did like the emergence of running back Giovanni Bernard. He finally came back due to injuries. 262 yards rushing and a couple of scores. He is actually he rushed for the most yards against Virginia Tech in the history for Virginia Tech. He had a big game. Big props out for him. And I like to give a shout out to wide receiver Conan Vernon. He passed the ACC receptions mark. He is now the new ACC receptions leader. To talk about the receiver out of Duke, when Duke played Virginia, winning 42-17. Great job, Connor Vernon. Very proud of you. Now I'm going to head over to Big East side. One game I need to talk about. Rutgers playing UConn. Rutgers is now 5-0, beating the Huskies 19-3. They had a great defensive showdown. They should crack the top 20 this season. Coming up to this week, they're ranked number 22 for that matchup, but they should definitely be ranked within the top 20. They're having a great season thus far, and they're the favorites to win the Big East championship. Now I need to talk about an independent school and an offense and the teams which their offense stepped up. Notre Dame against Miami. Notre Dame Fighting Irish killed the Hurricanes 41-3 due to the great efforts on the offensive side. They're finally starting to step up. Golson had a big game. Sierra Wood rushed for 118 yards, a touchdown. Reddick, they had great players all around on the offensive side, and everybody stepped up offensively. And the defense continued to do their thing, holding Miami to just 3 points. This was a good run, and they should probably crack the top 7 of this year's overall rankings coming into this week. They had a big game, and they probably deserve to make it to a BCS championship, but they still have a couple of tough games left in the remainder of their tough schedule. But we'll see what happens, and I'll give you guys all the scoop later on this week for their game this week. Now I'm going to head over to Big Ten. Ohio State University, they beat Nebraska 63-38. Braxton Miller once again did his thing, and I did like the help from running back Carlos Hyde. He had 140 yards rushing and a couple of scores. He had a big game, and I thought Nebraska was going to pull that upset, but they ended up getting stunned and playing a little bit terrible, especially on that second half, and allowing Ohio State pulling up 63 points. Great job by Braxton Miller, and he's definitely one of my top 3 players for this year's Heisman Trophy thus far this season. And another Big Ten showdown, I picked a good upset. Penn State over number 24 Northwestern 39-28. That was a great effort by the Penn State Nittany Lions. They had the home field advantage, and I'm very proud of Coach O'Brien. He had a good scheme for this matchup. Matt McGloin did his thing, and they ended up giving Northwestern their first loss of the season. And I was pretty shocked that Northwestern was 5-0 starting off this year, and I knew they were going to lose this matchup. Now I'm going to head over to the SEC Conference. 2 games in particular, 2 of the biggest games this week. And starting with the first game, the biggest shocker for me, Georgia getting killed by South Carolina 35-7. South Carolina defensive line was the key for this matchup. Both Sutton and Jadeveon Clowney attacking Aaron Murray, only allowing him to throw for 109 yards, a season low. Aaron Murray just couldn't get anything together. He fumbled the ball a couple of times, had a couple of passes batted away, a couple of interceptions. He had a bad game, and plus that defense overall stopped the running backs, both Todd Gurley and Keith Marshall, who I mentioned for that for last week's preview. They rushed for a combined 76 yards. Great effort by South Carolina. And on the offensive side, they put up a lot of big plays with limited amount of plays overall. Connor Shaw passed for over 150 yards and just 6 completions and a big touchdown. This guy this quarterback overall, this is a good dual threat, an underrated dual threat, and I think he could lead his team to an SEC championship. But they both have to play well together, the offense and the defense of the Gamecocks. I still not 100% convinced with this team because they have to show a little bit more consistency, but they are taking a step forward with that. They had a big game. Now, another big game of the week in the SEC Conference, Florida against LSU at Gainesville. This was a big matchup. Running back Mike Gillespie rushed for 34 rushes for 146 yards and 2 scores, and Florida's big win, 14-6. This was a great win. That defense was playing well on the first half, but then they just started getting ran all over by Florida. I'm talking about LSU's defense. They were ran all over by Florida in the second half. And the surprising thing to me is the performance of quarterback Jeff Driscoll. He only threw for 61 yards. He needs to step up a little bit in order for Florida to get to that second notch. I'm not really 100% convinced that this is a national contender for the national championship, talking about the Florida Gators, but they are taking a big step forward. I did like their performance defensively. Their defense kept them in the game, but quarterback Jeff Driscoll has to perform a lot better. Just 61 yards passing, and they still won the game. That pretty much tells everybody that the defense is carrying the Florida Gators. But I do like the running back Mike Gillespie. He has been carrying that offense for just about the entire season thus far. Now, overall this week, I went 8-4, 66%. I still have been struggling this year, and I pretty much believe that a lot of people have been struggling with their picks because there were a lot of crazy losses and insane games this season, and I'm just loving this season overall. And I cannot wait to see what happens this upcoming week. We're headed over to week 7, and I'm going to give you my preview on Thursday for this year college football season, week number 7. I'll catch you guys then on Thursday. Thank you for watching today's vlog from Pro Football Exclusive. I'm your man, Akeem McCall. Be easy.